Olivia Idowa tapped her pen against the mahogany desk. Her brows furrowed, eyes locked on the sleek glass door of her office at Idowa Media Group, one of the fastest-growing digital agencies in Lagos. Her phone buzzed for the third time in 5 minutes, and this time her assistant's voice followed almost immediately. "Ma, he's here." She stood slowly, adjusting the buttons of her white silk blouse. "Let him in." The door swung open, and in walked Kingston Freeman, tall, suave, dressed in a dark blue tailored suit that whispered old money and zero patience. He filled the room with his presence. He didn't need to speak to be heard. His reputation screamed for him. Kingston Freeman, the man behind some of Nigeria's most brutal corporate acquisitions. Billionaire, businessman, and the type of man who looked like he hadn't smiled since the 2008 financial crisis. He nodded barely. "Miss Idowa." "Mr. Freeman," she said coolly, "I suppose you're not here to buy ad space." A flicker of amusement lit his eyes. "I don't buy ad space, I buy companies." There it was. Olivia braced herself. "So I've heard." He placed a folder on her desk with precision. "I'm acquiring 3 companies in the next quarter. Yours is on that list." Olivia laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "You think you can just walk in here, throw money at me, and take over what I built?" He didn't blink. "I don't throw money. I offer fair value. Your board is already in talks." Her stomach twisted. Traitors. She had known some of them had been acting strangely. But this? She straightened her back. "This is my company. I built it from scratch. I'm not giving it to some Banana Island bully with a god complex." A small smirk tugged at his lips. "You flatter me." "You disgust me," she shot back, her temper flaring. He stared at her for a long moment, then leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "You're smart, Olivia. Too smart to pretend you can fight me with sheer willpower. But," his gaze drifted to the skyline, visible behind her. "I like ambition." She narrowed her eyes. "Get to the point." He leaned back with a glint of mischief. "What if I offered you a deal?" "A deal?" she echoed. "You pretend to be my girlfriend for the next 6 months. Events, appearances, the whole charade. In return, I back off your company, and I'll even inject some capital into your next project." She blinked. Hard. "Excuse me?" "My mother is pressuring me to settle down. The board prefers a stable CEO image for my next expansion. You, Miss Idowa, are photogenic, successful, and fiery. Just the woman to make headlines beside me." "You're insane." He shrugged. "Possibly." She turned away, pacing, trying to collect her thoughts. The audacity, the nonsense of it. And yet she knew something else. If Kingston was serious about a takeover, he'd find a way. He always did. But 6 months of faking affection for a man she couldn't stand? She turned back. "You're not touching my company." "Agreed. No real kisses. No sex," he added, hands raised. Her cheeks flushed and she snapped. "Good, because I wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole." He chuckled. "Let's keep that energy. It'll make the act more believable." She glared. "Why me?" "Because you're the only woman I've met in years who doesn't seem even slightly impressed by my net worth." She opened her mouth, then shut it. Touché. Later that night in her apartment in Ikoyi, Olivia sat curled on the couch, glass of wine in hand. Her best friend Tommy was on speaker. "You agreed to what?" Tommy shrieked. "I didn't agree. I just said I'd think about it." "Olivia, the man is Satan in a Tom Ford suit." "I know," she groaned, "but if he really wants my company, he'll get it. Unless I play chess, too." Tommy went quiet, then sighed. "Fine, but if he tries to kiss you, break one of his ribs." "Deal." Just then, her phone buzzed again. A message. Kingston Freeman. "You have 48 hours to decide, or I make the move on your board. Sweet dreams, pretend girlfriend." She stared at the screen. This was madness, but if protecting her legacy meant dancing with the devil for 6 months, then maybe, just maybe, Olivia could play the part. After all, the rules were clear. No kissing, no sex, no betrayal. Easy, right? 2 days later, Olivia found herself standing in front of Freeman Tower, the iconic headquarters of Freeman Holdings. A glass and marble skyscraper nestled in the heart of Banana Island. Everything about the building screamed wealth and precision, from the valet in crisp uniform to the faint scent of imported eucalyptus wafting through the automatic glass doors. She almost turned back. Almost. But she remembered the email from her legal advisor confirming that Kingston had begun informal board inquiries. He was serious. He wasn't bluffing. She marched through the lobby in a cream pantsuit and nude heels, her curly bun held in place like a crown. If she was going to be someone's fake girlfriend, she'd at least look like a queen doing it. The receptionist stood as she approached. "Miss Idowa, Mr. Freeman is expecting you. Executive floor." She nodded, adjusting her handbag. As the elevator ascended, she looked at her reflection in the mirrored panels. Calm, confident, beautiful. No trace of panic. Exactly how she needed to appear. The doors slid open to reveal Kingston's office. A sleek, open space bathed in natural light, with ocean views on one side and a dramatic Lagos skyline on the other. And there he stood, Kingston Freeman, casually leaning on his glass desk, sleeves rolled to his elbows, his dark eyes meeting hers with that same irritating smirk. "You're late," he said. "You're lucky I showed up." He chuckled and gestured to a leather chair. "Sit. Let's discuss the terms of our insanity." She remained standing. "I want everything in writing. Signed, no fun business." "Done," he said, pulling out a typed document and sliding it across the desk. She took it and scanned. It was all there. And duration, 6 months, public appearances, weekly PDA minimal, pre-agreed gestures, only living arrangements, separate homes, though joint vacations and events were required, sex. Strictly forbidden termination clause. Either party could exit, but if she exited early, her company was fair game. Her brow arched. "No clause about emotions?" "Emotions?" He blinked. "Are you planning to fall in love with me?" She rolled her eyes. "Just making sure you don't confuse the charade." His lips twitched. "Oh, don't worry. I've been emotionally unavailable since secondary school." She signed, then looked up. "When do we start?" "Now." Her brows lifted. "Now?" "I have a charity gala tonight. You're my date." "I can't." "You can," he interrupted. "It'll make a splash. You and I, first public appearance. Let the media wonder." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "I'll need a dress and a driver." "You'll have both in an hour." He paused. "And Olivia?" "What?" "Smile tonight. Pretend I make you happy." She stared at him. You pretending to be lovable might be harder. That evening, Olivia stepped out of a Freeman Holdings vehicle onto a red carpet lined with photographers. The gala was being held at a luxurious private ballroom on the top floor of a new luxury hotel in Victoria Island. Her dress was emerald green silk, hugging her curves with elegance, and her makeup was flawless, courtesy of Kingston's in-house glam team, who'd descended on her apartment like a SWAT unit. Kingston was waiting at the bottom of the grand staircase, clad in a jet-black tuxedo, looking every bit the devil she remembered. As she approached, he extended his hand and whispered just loud enough, "Wow." "Stick to the script, Freeman," she muttered, taking his hand. They walked into the ballroom together, flashes going off around them. Olivia kept her posture regal, her smile practiced. She could feel his hand on the small of her back, polite, steady, but firm enough to convince the crowd. Kingston introduced her to CEOs, politicians, foreign dignitaries. She played her part flawlessly, laughing at the right jokes, speaking about her company's vision, sipping champagne without ever truly relaxing. But it was during the dinner that the evening took a strange turn. "Kingston," said an older woman seated across from them, "you didn't tell us you had a girlfriend. What a surprise." Kingston gave her a charming smile. "We like to keep things private." "How did you two meet?" she asked Olivia, leaning forward with curiosity. Olivia hesitated, then smiled. "At a business panel in Lekki, we argued over digital strategy. He hated my views. I thought he was arrogant. It was love at first fight. Laughter erupted at the table. Kingston's brow rose with amusement. That's actually not bad. She sipped her drink. I know. Later that night, they stood on the hotel balcony overlooking the city. The music and laughter echoed behind them, but they were alone in a bubble of silence. You handled yourself well, he said quietly. She glanced at him. I'm not doing this for your approval. He turned to her. Why are you doing it then? She paused. Because I've worked too hard to lose what I built. You might not care about what's beneath the surface, but I do. Every hour, every sacrifice. This isn't just business to me. His gaze softened. Maybe that's why you'll survive longer than most. She looked at him, surprised. For a second, there was no arrogance, no smirk, just sincerity. Then he stepped closer. You ready for your first fake tabloid headline? What? He pulled out his phone and showed her a notification. Breaking: Kingston Freeman debuts. New girlfriend, digital maven Olivia Idowa. Lagos power couple? She groaned. What have I done? He smirked again. Just entered the dragon's den, sweetheart. And with that, their twisted game officially began. Olivia sat in the back of Kingston's Maybach, staring at the headlines on her phone as the sleek black car glided down the streets of Banana Island. Kingston Freeman's mystery queen, Olivia Idowa, shocks high society with surprise romance. Beauty, brains, and billions. Is this the real deal? Sources say wedding bells may be next. She dropped the phone with a groan. They already want a wedding? Kingston, sitting beside her, didn't look up from his tablet. Welcome to dating me. I don't know whether to feel flattered or terrified. He shrugged, not the least bit fazed. Just smile in the pictures and keep wearing dresses like that. You'll survive. She narrowed her eyes. You're enjoying this, aren't you? He glanced at her then. You're good for business. Our stock rose 3 points after last night. So I'm your human press release. He leaned in slightly, voice dropping to that low drawl that made her pulse stutter. If you were just a press release, Olivia, I wouldn't be losing sleep. She turned her face to the window to hide the way her cheeks heated. Damn him. Later that day, Olivia entered her office on Victoria Island to find chaos brewing. Her phone rang nonstop. Emails flooded in from reporters, and even her junior staff couldn't hide their stares. Olivia, her assistant Yinka whispered as she handed her coffee. You're trending on Twitter. Everywhere. She sighed. Let me guess. #King Livia. Yinka smiled. And #billionaire Bay. Rolling her eyes, Olivia stepped into her glass-walled office and shut the door. She collapsed into her chair, heart racing. This wasn't what she'd signed up for. She'd expected stage smiles and charity balls, not full-on celebrity status. Just then, her phone rang. Kingston. She stared at it for a second before answering. Yes. Wear something casual. We're going out. She blinked. Where? He was already ending the call. You'll see. An hour later, Kingston's car pulled up in front of her office. He emerged in dark jeans, a white shirt rolled at the sleeves, and designer loafers. Relaxed, yet somehow still intimidating. She joined him in jeans and a red blouse, hair in a high puff, determined to look unfazed. The destination? Victoria Island Mall. What are we doing here? She asked as they walked through the entrance, cameras already flashing from bystanders. Being seen, Kingston replied, adjusting his sunglasses. Real couples run errands. You have a very twisted view of normal. Fake it convincingly, he muttered through clenched teeth, and no one gets hurt. Inside, they browsed luxury shops while paparazzi trailed behind like puppies. Olivia had never been photographed so much in her life. Every move was dissected, every laugh analyzed. She leaned in close. Should I hold your hand? He gave her a sidelong glance. I was hoping you'd ask. She slipped her fingers into his, surprised at how warm and sure his grip was. They entered a store, and while Kingston spoke to the manager about a suit fitting, Olivia drifted toward the perfumes. A moment later, she heard a sharp voice behind her. Olivia! She turned. Standing there was Tony, a former university friend turned frenetic gossip blogger. Dressed in leopard print, with a camera already half raised. "Oh my God," Tony gasped. "Are you seriously dating Kingston Freeman?" Olivia gave her a tight smile. "Nice to see you too, Tony." Tony glanced around, eyes wild. "Girl, how did you even bag him? Like, is it real or is it PR? People are saying it's fake, but—" Kingston reappeared just in time. He slid his arm around Olivia's waist and pulled her close, planting a kiss on her temple so soft, so natural she nearly forgot to breathe. "It's very real," he said in a voice dripping with charm. Tony's jaw dropped. "Wow, okay. You two are, whew, all right then." As she scurried off to post her scoop, Olivia turned to Kingston. "Was that in the contract?" "No," he said, "but I improvise well." She stepped back, heart racing. "Don't do that again." "You're blushing," he said with a knowing grin. She turned sharply away, muttering, "You're infuriating." "And yet," he said, following her, "you're still holding my hand." She yanked it away. "Not anymore." Back in the car, Olivia rested her head against the window. "This is exhausting," she murmured. Kingston looked at her, softer now. "It gets easier. You learn to shut out the noise." She studied him in the reflection. "Do you ever turn it off? The cold, the control?" He didn't answer immediately. Then quietly, "If I ever did, I'd lose everything I built." She watched him a moment longer. Not everything worth having is built with cold hands. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft hum of the engine and the heartbeat she was trying to ignore. That night she lay awake in her apartment, the memory of Kingston's touch still lingering. This was supposed to be fake. So why did it feel like something was starting to shift? The invitation had arrived that morning, a heavy cream envelope with gold trim and the Freeman crest embossed at the top. Inside was a handwritten note from Kingston's personal assistant. "Mr. Freeman requests your presence for a private dinner this evening. Formal attire, 7 p.m., Freeman Estate. Eliza, Office of the CEO." Olivia held the card like it was a summons to war. Tommy, her best friend, squealed on the phone. "Girl, that's not a dinner invitation. That's a soft launch into seduction." "It's not real," Olivia insisted, rummaging through her closet. "It's part of the fake dating package." "Fake until it's not. You better wax everything." "Tommy." By 6:50 p.m., Olivia stood at the Freeman Estate gates, heart thudding. The Freeman mansion was less of a house and more of a modern fortress. A sprawling white structure carved into the Banana Island coast, wrapped in manicured hedges and luxury vehicles. A water feature curved around the entrance and the smell of orchids lingered in the night air. She wore a floor-length navy gown, simple yet elegant, her curls swept into a bun. Minimal makeup, maximum composure. The front door opened and there he was, Kingston Freeman. In a black suit with no tie, shirt slightly unbuttoned, he looked less like the devil and more like temptation personified. "You clean up well," he said, eyes scanning her. "You invited me. I assumed showing up in jeans would offend your delicate billionaire senses." He chuckled, stepping aside. "Come in." The dining room overlooked a shimmering infinity pool and the lagoon beyond. Candles flickered along the table, and a private chef was just finishing plating 2 courses when she sat. "This is a lot," she murmured. Kingston poured wine into her glass. "I figured we could use a real conversation. No cameras, no gossip blogs, just us." She tilted her head. "Now you want real. I want to understand who I'm faking this with." They ate in silence for a few minutes, soft jazz playing in the background, the clink of silverware echoing in the spacious room. Then he spoke. "Why media?" She blinked. "What?" "You could have done anything, Olivia. Why build a digital agency in one of the most competitive industries in Lagos?" She hesitated, then answered, "Because stories matter. Because we're more than scandals and hashtags. I wanted to create something that helped people, brands, businesses, tell their truth. And I'm good at it." He nodded slowly. "You are." She studied him. "Why do you do what you do? Buy companies, scare executives, stay cold as steel?" "Because I watched my father build an empire and lose it trying to please everyone. I learned early, Emotion is a liability. She softened. And love? He looked at her directly. Untrustworthy currency. Ouch. She took a sip of wine. Maybe you've been investing in the wrong stocks. A smile tugged at his lips. And you think you're the right one? No, she said, but I know value when I see it. For a moment, the air between them thickened. The candles flickered. His eyes dropped to her lips before he caught himself and leaned back. So, he said, switching gears, the press will expect a vacation next month. My team is suggesting a weekend getaway. Seychelles or Morocco? She blinked, thrown. You plan fake vacations too? Of course. The illusion must be airtight. She sighed. You exhaust me. I get that a lot. After dinner, he walked her through his private gallery. Art from across the world, each piece somehow reflecting a part of him. The room was quiet except for their footsteps and the occasional soft rustle of fabric. Do you ever feel lonely here? She asked without thinking. He paused beside a painting. Loneliness is efficient. No one to disappoint. She stared at him. That's not living, Kingston. That's surviving. He turned toward her then, his voice low. And what would you know about it? She stepped closer. Because I've done both. They stood there, too close, too long. Her heartbeat raced. He was right there, so real, so raw in that moment. No arrogance, no smirk. Just a man and a woman pretending not to feel what was burning in the air. And then he stepped back. I'll have the driver take you home, he said. She blinked, the moment broken. Right, thank you. For dinner. Good night, Olivia. As the doors closed behind her, she exhaled, only realizing then how tightly she'd been holding her breath. In the car, her phone buzzed. Tommy, tell me everything. Did he kiss you? Olivia stared at the screen. Olivia! No kiss, but I think he almost wanted to. And for some reason, that scared her more than anything. Oh, because this wasn't supposed to mean anything. But tonight it almost did. Olivia stood by the tall windows of her Victoria Island office, sunlight pouring across the floor. She was supposed to be reviewing a pitch deck, but her mind was anywhere but on spreadsheets. She was thinking about him, about that dinner, about how he'd looked at her in that quiet gallery like she was more than a pawn in his chess game. She didn't want to admit it, but the lines were blurring. The rules were supposed to keep her heart safe. No kissing, no sex, no falling. And yet there she was, falling in thoughts, if not in love. Her assistant tapped the door. There's a delivery for you, Ma. Olivia blinked. A delivery? A moment later, Yinka returned holding a sleek, black box tied with a gold ribbon. Inside was a bouquet of white orchids and a note. Thank you for pretending like you enjoyed dinner. You're good at this. KF. She stared at the card for a long moment, then slipped it back into the box and shut it. That evening, she arrived at Freeman Holdings for a scheduled couples photo shoot in their rooftop garden. The place had been transformed into a dreamy scene, fairy lights strung across the trellis, soft instrumental music playing in the background, and a photographer from one of Nigeria's top lifestyle magazines snapping away as staff bustled around them. You're late, Kingston said, as she stepped onto the rooftop in a golden satin slip dress and low heels. You're always on time. Someone needs to balance the universe, she shot back. He smiled. Touché. They posed in silence for the first few shots, his hand on her waist, her fingers curled lightly on his chest. Professional, distant, flawless. Closer, the photographer said. More natural. Pretend you adore each other. Kingston didn't hesitate. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and whispered something only she could hear. You look like trouble in that dress. She blinked, thrown off balance. Her smile faltered, then returned. Only this time, it was real. Click. The photographer captured it. You're playing dirty, she murmured as they moved into the next pose. He leaned in closer, lips brushing her ear. You make it easy. After the shoot, they stood side by side, watching the skyline shimmer. I hate how easy it is to pretend with you, Olivia said softly. Kingston glanced at her. That's the first honest thing you've said all night. She laughed, almost sadly. What happens when this ends? When the 6 months are over? He shrugged. You go back to building your empire. I go back to being the villain. That doesn't scare you? What, being alone again? He gave a short laugh. No, that's familiar. She looked at him then, deeply. But don't you want more than familiar? He didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, I stopped believing in more a long time ago. Later that night in her Ikoyi apartment, Olivia tried to sleep, but her mind refused to settle. She tossed, turned, replayed every lingering glance, every unspoken thing between them. By 2 a.m., she gave up and padded into the kitchen in a satin robe, heating some tea. Just as she turned toward the hallway, her phone buzzed. Kingston, are you awake? She hesitated. Olivia. Yes, couldn't sleep. He replied instantly. Kingston. Me neither. Oh, pause. Kingston. Come outside. Her heart leapt. She pulled on a coat and stepped out onto her quiet balcony. Across the street, his dark SUV sat idling, and just beyond it, Kingston leaned against the passenger door, looking up at her. What are you doing here? She called down. I don't know, he said honestly. I just wanted to see you. She stared at him for a long moment, her heartbeat louder than it should be. Then she whispered, Stay there. 5 minutes later, she opened the door and stepped into the cool night air. He looked up as she approached, and for the first time in all their interactions, he looked unsure. I didn't think you'd come down, he said. I didn't think you'd show up. They stood in silence. You okay? She asked finally. He exhaled. No, I think I'm in trouble. She frowned. What kind of trouble? He didn't look at her. The kind where I forget it's fake. Her breath caught. Kingston. He shook his head. You don't have to say anything. I know the rules. I wrote them, remember? But you're not just some face beside me anymore. You challenge me. You make me want. Want what? He looked at her, and this time his voice was barely a whisper. More. She could have stepped away. Should have. But instead, Olivia reached for his hand. His fingers wrapped around hers, warm and trembling slightly. Then maybe, she said softly, we need new rules. 3 weeks had passed since Kingston showed up outside her apartment at 2 a.m., confessed more than he'd ever admitted to anyone, and held her hand like it was the only thing tethering him to something real. And everything had changed. They still maintained the illusion for the press, public appearances, charity galas, weekend brunches at posh hotels, but underneath it all, something real was growing. Slow, unspoken, dangerous. Olivia tried to fight it. She buried herself in work at Idowa Media, took long walks through Ikoyi, and reminded herself that the arrangement had an expiration date. But the way he looked at her now, gentler, quieter, and the way he lingered after every staged kiss, she couldn't ignore it anymore. And what scared her most? She didn't want to ignore it. Kingston stared at the CCTV footage from his office, watching Olivia step into the Freeman Holdings lobby. She wore a navy blue sheath dress, heels clicking softly, her hair pinned up and face glowing in the golden sunlight. He wasn't expecting her today, but that made it better. He turned to his assistant, Eliza. Clear my schedule for the next hour. Eliza arched a brow. Even the investor call? He gave her a look. She smiled faintly. Clearing it now, sir. Moments later, Olivia stepped into his office. You always know when I'm coming, don't you? I have eyes everywhere. She sat across from him. I didn't come for a date, just dropping this off. She handed him a media deck for the foundation gala they were planning together, a publicity stunt turned meaningful fundraiser. He flipped through it without looking up. You're staying for lunch. I'm not. You're hungry. You're arrogant. He smirked. And yet you showed up. She smiled despite herself. You're impossible. But charming. Barely. Later that evening, they attended the Echo Hotel Women in Business Awards, where Olivia was nominated for Young Female Entrepreneur of the Year. As they arrived, flashbulbs exploded, and questions were hurled from every angle. Kingston, is the engagement rumor true? Olivia, are you moving into the Freeman estate? Do you believe in love at first sight? They smiled. They held hands, but inside, Olivia's nerves simmered. This wasn't pretend anymore. Not when he whispered before they entered the ballroom. You look like everything I ever wanted and was too scared to ask for. Not when he placed his hand on her lower back like it belonged there. Not when his eyes stayed on her longer than necessary, especially when she won. When Olivia was announced as the winner, the ballroom erupted into applause. She stepped onto the stage, heart pounding, speech forgotten. But when she looked down, Kingston stood among the crowd, clapping, proud, and smiling at her like she was the only one in the room. It made her feel seen, alive, loved. No, she shouldn't go there. After the gala, they drove back in silence. I meant what I said earlier, Kingston said as the city lights passed by the tinted windows. Which part? That you're everything I wanted. She turned to him. Even though I was supposed to be temporary? His voice dropped. Maybe I'm tired of temporary. The car stopped outside her building. Neither moved. I should go, she whispered. Do you want to? Her fingers hovered on the door handle. No. She stayed. In her apartment, Kingston stood in the doorway, unsure for once, vulnerable. Olivia walked past him and placed her purse on the kitchen counter. When she turned around, he was watching her. Carefully. I'm not here for a night, he said. I'm here because I don't want to imagine another day without you in it. And just like that, the final line between fake and real disappeared. Their kiss was slow, tender, deep. There were no rules now, no contracts, no pretending. Just Olivia and Kingston, two people who began with business but found something far more dangerous. Truth. Hours later, lying beside him beneath soft sheets, Olivia traced her fingers along his chest and asked, "What happens now?" Kingston pulled her close, kissed her hair, and said quietly, "Now we rewrite the story." Morning sunlight filtered into the room through gauzy curtains, casting golden streaks across the pristine white sheets. Olivia stirred first, blinking at the unfamiliar surroundings. Kingston's master bedroom was as luxurious as the man himself, sleek grays, sharp angles, and quiet elegance. Yet right now, the only thing that felt important was the warmth beside her. She turned slowly. Kingston lay asleep, one arm slung over his chest, the other resting dangerously close to her waist. His jaw, usually tight with control, was relaxed, vulnerable, human. She studied him for a moment, realizing something terrifying. She didn't just like him anymore. She was falling, hard. Her phone buzzed gently on the nightstand, jarring her back to reality. It was from Yinka. Media Buzz just posted a deep dive expose on Kingston's dating history. Might want to check this. It's not flattering. Olivia's heart sank. Quietly, she slipped out of bed and padded into the living room, pulling the article up on her phone. Headline, Kingston Freeman. Lagos billionaire heartbreaker. How long until Olivia joins the list? The article spared no detail. Former lovers, broken engagements, confidential sources claiming he had never truly committed to any woman. Cold, calculated, ruthless. Some even said he used affection as currency. Olivia felt her stomach twist. They had crossed a line, one she'd sworn not to cross, and now the world was watching, waiting for the cracks, waiting for her to be next. By the time Kingston walked into the living room, dressed in nothing but gray slacks and a sleepy grin, Olivia was already in her dress, phone in hand. He froze. "You're leaving?" She turned, unreadable. "There's an article trending. About you. About us." He didn't need to ask. He'd seen it coming. "And?" he asked, voice cautious. "Tell me it's not true, that you haven't made a habit of charming women only to toss them aside when the press dies down." Kingston's expression hardened, the air shifting instantly. "Is that what you think this is?" "I don't know what to think," she snapped. "This started as a deal, Kingston. A fake arrangement. But now it's real and I don't know where I stand. He moved closer. You stand here, with me, because I'm not playing anymore, Olivia. But do you even know how not to play? She asked, eyes glistening. Because I've built my life on truth. My career, my name. It all means something to me. I can't be another storyline in your glittering history. His jaw tightened. You're not. She grabbed her clutch. Then prove it. Show me I'm not just convenient. That this isn't another Freeman PR move. And with that, she left. The day dragged at Olivia's office. Her team noticed the shift, her quiet tension, her absent stares. Everyone was buzzing about the article. Even clients made jokes during meetings. She hated that her relationship, real or fake, had become a conversation piece. Tommy called around noon. You okay? No. Did he say anything about the article? He denied nothing, just told me I mattered. Tommy sighed. Girl, his track record is messy, but people change, especially for the right person. I don't want to change him, Olivia whispered. I want to be chosen, not needed for strategy, not used as a shield. Chosen. You're already more to him than anyone else. You just can't see it yet. Olivia ended the call, but Tommy's words echoed. Chosen. Was she brave enough to believe she already had been? That night, Kingston sat alone on the patio of his mansion, the city lights twinkling like distant promises. He hadn't chased her. He could have, but something in her eyes had stopped him. Fear. Not of him, but of being made a fool, of being vulnerable, and truth be told, he was afraid too. Afraid of becoming someone who needed, of wanting something so real it might break him. He stared at his phone, thumb hovering. Then he opened his photo gallery, a picture from the rooftop shoot. Olivia, mid-laugh, her eyes bright, hand gripping his. He smiled, then typed, Kingston, you said you wanted truth? Meet me tomorrow, 8 p.m. I'll show you mine. The clock struck 8 p.m. as Olivia's Uber pulled into the long driveway of the Freeman estate, the same place where everything had shifted, where a fake arrangement had cracked open something terrifyingly real. She wasn't dressed for a date. Tonight, she wore black trousers, a simple blouse, and no makeup. No armor. If Kingston was going to show her his truth, then she'd meet him with nothing but hers. The butler opened the door before she knocked. He's expecting you, Ma, in the study. Not the dining room, not the rooftop terrace. The study. Interesting. She walked through the grand hallway with its polished marble floors, past walls lined with fine art, and stopped in front of the tall oak doors. Inside, Kingston stood beside a cabinet, pouring himself a drink. He didn't turn as she entered. You came. You asked. He handed her a glass of water and gestured to the leather armchair across from his. Sit. The room was dim, lit only by a lamp in the corner. Warm, heavy silence filled the air. Books lined every wall, some old, some worn, and behind him, oddly out of place, was a framed photo of a little boy and a smiling man. Olivia noticed. My father, Kingston said before she could ask. She sat. You never talk about him. Because he broke me before I could understand what breaking was. He sipped his drink, then walked to the fireplace. My father built Freeman Holdings from the ground up. He started with logistics, then oil, then media. Everyone adored him, charisma in public, ice in private. Olivia watched silently, her hands folded. He believed emotions were currency you gave away. Love was a weakness. He made sure I never forgot it. Her voice was soft. He hurt you? In every way that didn't leave a bruise. Kingston's jaw tightened. He cheated on my mother, belittled her dreams, dismissed her until she withered. She died of cancer when I was 19. I wasn't even allowed to take a break from school. He said grief was an excuse. He sat across from her, setting down his drink. That's why I stayed cold. That's why I built walls, because I thought control kept people from leaving. Olivia's eyes stung. And now? He looked at her. Now I want something different, but I'm afraid I'll destroy it before I even know how to protect it. She swallowed. Why tell me all this? Because you asked for the truth, and because, he paused, I can't lose you to fear. Not mine, not yours. Silence. Heavy. Electric. Then Olivia stood and walked slowly to where he sat. She kneeled in front of him, took his hand in both of hers and whispered, You won't lose me. Not unless you pushed me away. His voice was rough. That's what I've done my whole life. Then stop. Their eyes met, and for once nothing was fake. Not the touch, not the connection, not the love quietly blooming in the spaces neither of them dared speak of yet. She stood and cupped his jaw. Let me in, Kingston. All the way. No more pretending. He nodded slowly. No more pretending. And then, finally, gently, he kissed her. No cameras, no contracts, just lips and truth and everything in between. Hours later, as they sat on the study floor with wine and jazz filling the room, Olivia rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, So what now? Kingston looked down at her, hand grazing hers. Now, we build something real. She smiled. No more rules? He shook his head. Only one. What's that? We don't run. The sun had barely risen when the storm began, not one with rain or thunder, but with headlines. Breaking news leaked emails exposed deal between Olivia Idowa and Kingston Freeman. Was the relationship always a lie? Olivia jolted awake in Kingston's bed, the echo of her buzzing phone cutting through the stillness. She grabbed it. Tommy girl, check Twitter now. It's bad. Like bad, bad. Another message followed immediately from her assistant. Yinka Media Buzz leaked something. It's trending. The fake girlfriend contract, even the signatures. I'm so sorry. Her blood ran cold. Her heart thudded in her chest as she sat up. The duvet wrapped around her. Kingston entered from the hallway, freshly showered, towel in hand. He saw her expression. What is it? She turned the phone toward him. He froze. Then slowly he took the phone, scrolled through the headlines, the screenshots, the anonymous source quotes, and his entire face changed. You said only you and your legal team had a copy, Olivia whispered, her voice tight. I did, he said grimly. And Eliza, she helps manage my contracts. And now the whole country knows our love started as a lie. Kingston's face hardened. I'll fix this. You can't unring a bell, Kingston, she snapped. This was my reputation, my company, my name. His jaw tightened. And what about mine? You think this doesn't hurt me? Oh, please, you'll survive. You always do. But I'll be the woman who faked her way into a billionaire's bed just to save her company. Her voice cracked. I gave you everything, and now the world thinks I'm a fraud. He stepped closer. You think I did this? I don't know, she said. I don't want to believe it, but I don't know who to trust anymore. He backed away then, jaw clenching. If you're not sure you trust me now, after everything, I won't beg. He turned and walked out. And just like that, the walls they had torn down came crashing back. That afternoon, Olivia sat behind her office desk at Idowa Media, staring blankly at her inbox. Clients were pulling back, advertisers were calling her team for clarity, and the media was feasting on the scandal like vultures. She barely noticed Tommy burst in, cheeks flushed with rage. I just left Media Buzz, Tommy hissed. The leak came from inside Freeman Holdings. Some bitter assistant was offered money by the press to drop the contract and email chain. She got greedy. She's already been fired, but the damage is done, Olivia whispered. Tommy softened. Olivia, Kingston didn't betray you. He looked wrecked when they escorted me out. I've never seen him like that, not even at board meetings. Olivia pressed her palm to her forehead. It doesn't matter. Everyone thinks this relationship was a business stunt from the beginning. But it wasn't anymore. She looked up, eyes heavy. Maybe that's what hurts most. Meanwhile, Kingston stood in his office, glass shattered on the floor from the whiskey he'd hurled moments earlier. He stared out the window at the Banana Island skyline, jaw clenched so tightly it ached. He had promised Olivia no more pretending, no more pain. And now, because of one oversight, one weak link in his cold, perfect system, he had failed her. He dialed Eliza. "Have our legal team prepare a statement and call every outlet running that headline. I want lawsuits filed within the hour." "Wait, sir, and find a venue," he cut her off. "A press conference. I'm going to tell them everything." The next day, reporters flooded the Freeman Holdings rooftop garden, invited to what was cryptically titled, "A Statement of Truth." The media world buzzed with anticipation. Some expected damage control, others expected spin. But no one expected what came next. Kingston stepped up to the podium in a black suit and no tie, looking every bit the man who once thrived on control, except now he was cracked open. Vulnerable, real. "I'm not here to deny anything," he began. "Yes, Olivia Idowa and I began our relationship through a professional agreement, a contract, but what began as strategic turned into something far deeper than either of us expected." He paused. "What the media is missing is that long after the contract stopped mattering, I fell in love with her. Not for her image, not for convenience, but because she challenges me. She makes me want to be someone worthy of her, and I failed her by not protecting her from the storm." Cameras clicked. Gasps echoed. "I don't care if this hurts my brand, my company, or my name, but I won't let her be painted as a fraud." He stepped down from the podium and walked straight to the center aisle where Olivia stood, frozen, arms crossed, heart thudding. He took her hand gently, firmly. "I love you," he said, "and I'm not pretending anymore. If you'll still have me, no rules, no games, just us." Silence. The world held its breath. And then Olivia did something that made every camera lens fog with emotion. She kissed him. Right there, in front of Lagos. Right there, in front of the world. Because some love stories are born in chaos, but survive because they are real. 3 months later. Lagos hadn't forgotten the scandal, but it had forgiven it. What started as a whirlwind romance laced with corporate strategy and public spectacle had, against all odds, bloomed into something real, tangible, unshakable. Olivia Idowa was no longer just the woman who faked love for profit. She had become something more, a symbol of grace, strength, and authenticity in a city that devoured facades for breakfast. Her company had not only recovered, Idowa Media had grown. Clients returned in droves, impressed not just by her vision, but by her ability to weather fire without burning. The scandal gave her voice a louder echo, her truth a wider platform. Oh, and beside her, never far, was Kingston Freeman, transformed in ways no one had expected. At Freeman Holdings, changes swept through the corridors. Kingston had stepped back from being the man behind the curtain and into the light. Staff noticed the shift. He smiled more, spoke gently, listened. At the quarterly leadership event, when asked what inspired the new company culture, he simply said, love. One Saturday afternoon, Olivia stood in the middle of a children's reading center in Surulere. The Freeman Idowa Foundation had just launched their latest initiative, a literacy campaign for underprivileged children across Lagos. Kingston knelt beside a group of wide-eyed kids, handing out books and asking each of them what they wanted to become. "I want to be a boss like you," said a little girl with cornrows and a missing front tooth. He laughed. "Then always remember this: the best leaders don't control, they inspire." Behind him, Olivia smiled. Later, as they walked to the car, hand in hand, he looked over. "You know I never planned for this life?" She teased. "You mean being adored by children and chased by the press?" "No." He stopped, pulling her gently toward him. "I mean falling in love. Letting someone see me." She touched his chest. "And now?" He leaned in. "Now I thank God every day that you made me feel something again." The following week at the Echo Convention Center, the couple arrived on the red carpet for the Lagos Power Gala, a major event celebrating innovation, philanthropy, and social leadership. But this time it wasn't about being seen. It was about making a statement. Kingston wore a custom black tux with subtle embroidery of their foundation's logo stitched into the cuff. Olivia dazzled in a deep emerald gown, her natural curls swept up in a bold, elegant style. The press, of course, surrounded them. "Mr. Freeman, any engagement news tonight?" "Olivia, are you officially moving into Freeman Estate? Will there be a wedding soon?" Kingston paused, smiled at Olivia, then turned to the cameras. "There's no engagement news yet," he said, voice deep and sure. "But what I can say is that I found the woman who taught me what legacy really means. Not buildings, not headlines, but love." And just like that, the questions stopped. The flashbulbs went wild. Because they were no longer the billionaire and the PR darling. They were simply Kingston and Olivia, two imperfect people who chose each other through fire, scandal, and the high-gloss chaos of Lagos society. Later that night, Olivia stood on the balcony of their suite overlooking the city. Kingston came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Remember when this was all fake?" she whispered. He kissed her shoulder. "No, I remember pretending. But this was always real." She turned to him. "Are you ready to rewrite forever?" He reached into his pocket, pulled out a velvet box, and opened it slowly. Inside was a simple, stunning emerald-cut diamond ring. "Only if you'll say yes." Tears filled her eyes. "Yes," she breathed. No cameras, no press, just them. The ocean breeze danced through the palms as waves gently lapped against the pristine shores of a private Lagos beach estate. The sand was lined with cream linens, soft rose petals, and hand-tied greenery. There were no paparazzi, no invasive lenses, just close friends, family, and the sound of laughter as the sun dipped into a golden horizon. Today wasn't about press or perception. It was about two hearts that had defied expectations, rewritten the rules, and arrived at something the world never believed would last. It was the day Olivia Idowa became Mrs. Olivia Freeman. She stood at the edge of the aisle, barefoot in the sand, wearing a champagne silk gown that flowed like poetry. Her natural curls were adorned with a delicate tiara of gold leaves, and her bouquet was made of orchids. White, just like the ones he'd sent her that unforgettable morning months ago. As the music swelled, Olivia looked ahead. At the altar stood Kingston Freeman, no longer just the billionaire tycoon of Lagos, but the man who had been broken and rebuilt by love. He wore a tailored cream linen suit, no tie, and the kind of smile that once seemed impossible on his face. Her father walked her down the aisle, whispering, "He's waited his whole life for this, Olivia. You were the piece he never knew he was missing." Her eyes never left Kingston's, and his never left hers. Their vows were spoken without microphones. They didn't need amplification, just honesty. Kingston held her hands, voice steady. "You taught me that power means nothing if it can't protect what you love. You taught me that control without connection is just loneliness. And you taught me how to feel again. I promise to fight for you, laugh with you, build with you, and choose you every day, especially on the hard ones." Tears traced Olivia's cheeks as she responded, "You were my enemy, then my partner, and now my peace. You've given me space to grow, strength to believe, and a love I never thought I'd find in a man who once called emotions a liability. I promise to challenge you, honor you, and build a life with you that's not perfect, but powerful in its truth." As they kissed under the sunset, applause erupted from their guests. It wasn't just a celebration of marriage. It was a declaration that love, when honest, hard-fought, and real, could survive anything. Later that evening, as fairy lights glowed above dinner tables set in the sand, Tommy stood to give her speech. "I remember when Olivia first told me about the deal," she said, raising her wineglass. "I told her to run. I told her Kingston Freeman was cold, complicated, and emotionally bankrupt." Laughter rippled. Tommy grinned. "Turns out I was right about all of that. Then, but today, I see a man who melts when his wife laughs, who reads bedtime stories to children at the foundation, who traded his empire's silence for the sound of her voice. If that's not transformation, I don't know what is. She turned to Olivia. You didn't just win a man, you awakened one. They clinked glasses. 1 week later, the couple flew to Seychelles, not as a publicity stunt this time, but a real honeymoon. In a private villa overlooking turquoise waters, Kingston watched Olivia sketch out a new campaign on her notepad. You're working on our honeymoon? He teased. She smirked. Building empires doesn't stop at I do. Besides, you like it. He walked over, pulling her gently from the lounger. I like you better when you're not holding a pen. She laughed as he wrapped his arms around her waist. I'm still in awe that this is our life. He kissed her neck. It's just the beginning. Back in Lagos, their Freeman Idowa Foundation announced its expansion into West Africa, launching scholarships for girls in tech and rebuilding libraries across the region. Olivia led the charge with Kingston beside her, not as a figurehead but a partner. And when they attended events now, the cameras didn't label her Kingston Freeman's girlfriend. She was known by her own name, her own merit. Olivia Freeman, visionary, leader, wife, woman in full bloom. And him? He was no longer just the billionaire with walls. He was the man who tore them down to make room for her. Because some love stories don't begin with fireworks, they begin with strategy, with contracts, with boundaries. And somewhere along the way, they turn into everything.